Second here. I'm gonna go ahead and plug this guy in down there. That'll give us our headphone amp, and I'm pretty sure I got your mic in. There we go. Okay. I can hear you. I can see. I can fight. Okay. Hola, Pepsi Cola. You're listening to Mike and Jace's Music and Garbage, episode number dos. Longview, Washington's #1 music-related podcast, probably. I am your wonderful host, Mike Holm. With me, as always, Jace Gunter.
How's it going?
And Logan Taylor is here as well, our special guest this week. And we're going to be covering a few albums here that are near and dear to us. And I know Logan was one of the first guests that I definitely wanted on the show. We've had many a deep conversation about wonderful artists and albums, and we tend to share a fascination with several. So, yes, sir. How are we doing today?
Not too bad. Running on just a couple hours of sleep.
I feel you there, man. I'll tell you what. Actually, this is the most hours of uninterrupted sleep I've gotten all week because we got my dog his new bed. But I mean, it's like, okay, 6 is more than 3. So I mean,
yeah, I've been working these Friday overtime runs, and I don't know why I keep agreeing. I'm a fool.
You're a fool.
I feel you. I'm kind of a neat right now, so I'm getting plenty of sleep. Sorry,
Right.
guys. So what are our albums this week?
So this week, for those that remember, last week we did Mountain Goats Beat the Champ and the White Stripes Elephant. This week we've got Queens of the Stone Age, Lullabies to Paralyze. That was my choice. Jace, we are rocking, and I've actually got a nice little image for us. Power Trip's 2017 album, Nightmare Logic.
Nice.
Taking it back with some thrash here, and then Logan's pick, the Voidz 2014 debut album, Tyranny. So we got some good ones here, and I knew, knowing Logan, I knew we were gonna get a Voidz or Strokes album. Those are your bands, and you're rocking the Strokes right now, actually.
Yes.
So wonderful. This was one. So the before we kind of just dive into them individually, I will say I'm happy with this turnout because these are two albums that I had not really sat and listened to before. Like, I'd listened to the Void's latest album, Virtue, and I enjoyed it well enough, but I'd never kind of gone back and listened to Tyranny, and I'd never listened to Power Trip. Like, thrash and metal isn't necessarily the first genre I kind of jumped to, but I came out of this really enjoying both of the records that were put in front of me, and I spent a lot of face
different
time.
stuff going on this week.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
Sounds.
We're all
Yeah,
over the
definitely.
place. We kind of got like a By the Roots kind of desert rock album, and then we get like kind of a throwback mid to late 80s, early 90s thrash album, and then we get what I can only describe as like
Psychedelic.
Julian Casablancas, what results after him listening to the Flaming Lips for about 8 hours and going in and making and adding his own touch to it, and I mean, coming out with something totally independent from the Strokes and something really neat.
Well, I think that with this album, like, Julian came into the Strokes, like, from the minute he was an adult. The Strokes were famous, and it was an overnight success for them.
Right.
And so he's working on the Strokes for however many years until he started with the Voidz, and he said that this is kind of his passion project. This is what he's wanted to do.
I can kind of hear that. I'm not a massive Strokes fan. Like, I'm not fanatical, but I definitely enjoy them a lot. Sorry about that. Come Down Machine was on constant rotation for me a few years back for a while. So,
I remember that.
Yeah. And I also really, really liked his feature in Random Access Memories with Daft Punk back in 2013.
That is a great song.
Instant
Instant
Crush.
Crush.
Yeah, excellent feature. So I'm already a big Julian Casablancas fan, and I really like psychedelic music, so it was pretty much a winner for me.
Yeah, and I think, and I lean with you there on the psychedelic music thing. Specifically, I mean, the band I mentioned before, Flaming Lips, is they have some of my favorite albums, and specifically on a song that we'll get to when we cover when we're tackling Tyranny track by track, definitely hit me in the same way that some of the best Flaming Lips albums have. So I'm very happy with the turnout on that album for sure.
Awesome. So I'm kind of interested to hear your guys' take on Power Trip, because thrash and metal in general can be kind of polarizing for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, my thing is, without getting into it, on individual song basis, just putting it on, it's one of those that, I mean, I do have, and we'll get into like each of our kind of favorite tracks on the album and that kind of thing, or on each of the albums. I do have a couple songs I really liked on it, independent of the others, but this is one that anytime I'm going to put this thing on, and I think it speaks to how short it is, but how intense it is, I'm going to listen to the whole 32 minutes front to back.
That's a full album listen for sure.
And probably during, Executioner's Tax is going to be on every workout playlist I make from here on out. But honestly, I could throw that whole thing on. If I'm just doing a cardio thing, or if I'm just shooting hoops or something, maybe even throw that on, and I'll be just, running all day. I really enjoyed it.
It has great momentum. Something that I liked about it was how groovy the chugging passages can get. There are a lot of those like soaring kind of solos where they get real into the high notes and everything throughout the album, but that's really not. It's nice, but that's not what keeps me around. What keeps me around is definitely the chugs and the grooves, and just how much momentum there is to the whole thing, and it just kind of never quits. You have your lull songs. Well, not necessarily whole songs, but you have little portions of the album. But for the most part, it just kind of feels like
they're kind of going at 100%.
Yeah. They hit at 100 miles an hour and they stay at 100 miles an hour, and it kind of like, I was really high when I took my notes for this album. I've listened to this album many times, but I decided to start taking notes.
You smoke
for the
the weed? Come on, man.
Boy, howdy.
Grandma might be watching.
I think something that's nice about this is I listened to a lot of this kind of music back in the day, but I never really got into the lyrics. I kind of just view the voice as an album. And you were saying, oh, this is the day that you find out that we listen to lyrics. I don't listen to lyrics.
Really?
No.
I know that. I guess it depends on the song for you though, because I remember when we were talking about I'm not going to give it away yet, but the song that you really dig on Tyranny, you were like, I have multiple meanings and stuff like that. But I think, is that just kind of a song by song basis for you, where you kind of you feel something with a song in particular and you got to just deep dive it? Or
yeah, I think so. If I just love the song, but like a lot of Tyranny, I didn't even know half the lyrics to before I even looked it up.
Me neither.
It's so hard to like comprehend.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, on that song, I wasn't paying attention to the lyrics at all, really. I'm sitting here hearing these wonderful experimental grooves and synths and everything else, and then you're like, hey, have you been reading the lyrics to that? And I'm like, no. Like, I had to Google it, and on some of the, like the chorus, what I would consider the chorus.
The chorus where he's just like screeching with a guitar sound.
Dude, I'm like, it's so buried that I have to, I mean, even listening really hard, I'm just gonna say the song. It's Human Sadness. I had to listen really hard, and I couldn't tell that there was words in there. It reminded me too of actually my favorite Pixies song, Alec Eiffel. At the very end, where all the verses are done, and you get this nice, I'm talking about that really nice at the very end, those high notes, and you can faintly kind of hear somebody singing in it. And it wasn't honestly until I heard the cover of that song by the Get Up Kids, where I'm like, wait, there's actually lyrics in there. And I had to listen to it on really good headphones and turn it up, and then I'm like, oh, okay,
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and listen for that.
Yeah,
and listen to that cover too, because that's a good song.
It is really good. That it's on a tribute album, Where Is My Mind? I think it's like It's just called "Where's My Mind," a tribute to the Pixies. Weezer does a cover of "Gigantic" on
Cool.
there, or no, Real Big Fish covers "Gigantic." Weezer covers "Veloria."
Nice.
Weezer does covers.
No way, man. Yeah, it's almost like they should honestly release a whole album of colors. Colors.
Colors,
Well,
yeah.
color.
They do colors.
They should release a whole album of covers. Yeah, they should call it the Aqua album or some synonym of that.
Wow.
Would that be fun?
Jace, I listened last week and I was wondering, when did you go to the Tame Impala concert?
Oh yeah. So they were doing a tour, or he, I suppose, was doing a tour, like right as COVID started hitting really hard. So down in Southern California, he had a concert at I can't remember the name of the arena now, but it's like smack in downtown. It's Sports Arena Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first and last show of that tour because that was like the week that everybody was starting to shut down.
Yeah, I think that's funny because I went to the Strokes show in Seattle, and literally the next day,
Yeah.
everything was shut down.
You know, it's funny. We were just talking about it on the last show, the Long Shot show, about an hour ago. About 3 weeks before COVID dropped, in a 1 week span, I went to NXT Takeover Portland, and then me and my brothers went to the Korn concert, and then 2 weeks later, boom, everything's.
I feel like a lot of people were like, "Shit, I got to get a concert in."
Dude, for sure.
Right.
Because I knew the Strokes concert was coming, and I was like, as it came up and all this COVID started happening, I was like, they better not cancel
Yeah.
it, because it'd been like 16 years since the Strokes had been to Seattle.
Oh my gosh! Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Gosh, that's so funny. Well, and it's like even now, I mean, with venues and stuff not allowing fan access. I mean, I was talking about it on the show. NXT's doing another takeover show tomorrow, and still, I mean, the last 6 months, Portland was the last fucking live takeover show. So, yeah, man, I don't know.
Yeah, looking forward to concerts becoming a thing again.
Me too,
I know
man.
there's a lot of
I
artists
miss it.
doing
I
like
miss it.
I miss it too.
Yeah.
And big venues, small venues. Back in October, Logan and I went and saw Dinosaur Jr. and
Oh, awesome.
just packed little venue, and it was so
small
fun.
venues are the best.
Where was that? Wonder Ballroom?
Yeah, I wonder about that's where I actually saw the Voidz too.
Oh no shit. Okay, I think
Nice.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
That was a loud show, Dinosaur Jr.
Dude, yeah, like Jay Masks' guitar. I mean, I knew it was gonna blow my ears out, and then on some of those songs, it got really fuzzy and really heavy, and I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. Like,
It was a good show. They came out for like an encore and then played a whole nother set.
That's awesome.
they must have gone for like what, hour and a half, 2 hours.
Dude, that was the longest concert I've ever been to.
It was really long, but you could tell. I mean, they played so many of their songs. I was just really excited. I wanted to hear "In a Jar," and I will say, one of that album, "You're Living All Over Me." That'll be a future episode for me. But "In a Jar" is my favorite song. They played it second, and I'm like, oh fuck yeah!
I mean,
I was getting so hyped.
I'm sitting there since I don't know much about Dinosaur Jr., but I'm standing there next to Mike and he's going, "Oh yeah!"
Oh, it was so good.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that tour shirt that I got, or that shirt I bought there is still one of my favorites. It's just too damn hot to wear. It's a long sleeve shirt, and it's got Dinosaur Jr., but it's spelled out in like bones that have like noses and mouths on it. It's eyeballs. Yeah, it's great.
That's pretty sweet.
Okay, so which album do we want to tackle first, fellas?
Should we just hit the power trip first? I feel like
That's
that's a
fine.
good starter.
Yeah, I mean,
good.
stay in the fire with it since we were talking about it the most.
I have a question.
Okay.
What do you think this album as a whole is about?
So my interpretation
Yeah.
of this album is, it's kind of just, I mean, shocking, right? It's thrash metal, but it would be, in my opinion, kind of just an expression of anger with society
Mm-hmm.
in America.
For sure.
It definitely feels targeted at the United States to me, but it's not particularly an album where they're going to be saying a lot of things that are super profound. Like I said, it seems to be an expression of frustration and anger. So
And there's not like that much lyrical content.
right,
to this.
yeah, they're all pretty simple lyrically, perhaps with the exception of Crucifixion, which is the last track and the longest track. But it all kind of remains within the same wheelhouse. I think like the starter track, Soul Sacrifice, it's fairly straightforward in its lyrics. It seems to me to be about a it seems to me to be about killing people that are trying to silence you.
Yeah.
So, straight up, I can't recall any the lyrics straight off the top of my head, off the dome real quick.
I couldn't either, to be honest with you.
But if you were to go and look at them, basically, essentially what he's saying is, you're going to try to silence me, well, I'm going to put my boot on your neck until you stop breathing.
That's actually like an exact lyric. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure, but no, it's a very, very violent album.
Yeah.
Super duper. Yeah. It's definitely not pulling any punches.
What I loved about it is when I put it on, and I didn't know what exact. I mean, because I didn't, going in, I see Power Trip. I never listen to them. I go, all right, metal album. Let's see, because I like some metal, but it's not, it's not something I dive deep or
Right.
I deep dive. Put it on. It starts off. Soul Sacrifice starts off. The first minute or so is kind of slow, and which I know like a lot of concept metal albums are build up and build up. I didn't know that it was a 32-minute long album either until all of a sudden you hit that first and I'm immediately like, okay, I'm in. I'm fucking in this.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is gonna be a old school, just clubbing album, like beating me like with a hammer. And when I'm working and stuff, because I listen to these albums most at work, because I go to work, I fetch parts and stuff for weld bays and machine shops. I throw my headphones in and I just go. And when I'm running back and forth and fetching this and finding that, if I'm listening to a higher tempo song, I'm like speed walking upstairs, running up to our mezzanine to grab little parts and all this other stuff. You really do. And the vocals on this thing, they remind me a lot of a punk band that I actually really enjoy. Fucked Up.
Okay, so it's interesting that you should say that, actually, because a lot of people say that this isn't necessarily straight thrash. A lot of people hold the opinion that this is actually a little bit of a fusion between thrash and hardcore punk.
I would agree.
I felt that same thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's some of these, especially on Soul Sacrifice, Firing Squad.
Yeah.
I think really, it feels almost like you've got kind of because I've always said about Fucked Up is that Damien Abraham has a vocal that is also set for heavy metal, and in here, I don't know the singer's name. Riley Gale is the singer for Power Trip. His singing on this, especially on Firing Squad, it's literally what you would get if you took a heavy metal vocalist on almost kind of an old school punk backing with just some heavier riffs.
Right.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it. The faster the tempo, the more it pumps me up. And then, the album just zooms by.
It does.
It really does.
It absolutely flies.
I will say, I loved Executioner's Tax. That's a song that it's so old school in the fact that I can visualize it. By way, it reminds me of old school heavy metal album art, which I know a lot of metal bands kind of take a lot of inspiration for songs. I'm picturing an old school metal album cover with a Executioner with the hood and all that deal, you know. And
some type of Disturbed something,
but
they have a lot of that stuff,
but cooler, you know.
Yeah,
you have
Disturbed
that
is dumb.
You have that '80s aesthetic, it's just the freaking yoked, sweaty dude.
It's that
with a giant
heavy
axe
metal
and,
80s, it would be right at home on a Judas Priest cover or something,
totally.
You know. And he's standing in front of a dungeon or something, and you can't see his face, and he's got hair on his chest for some reason. And what I liked most about this song, though, it is how much of a throwback sound it is. I said the minute I heard it, you could throw that on a mixtape full of just late 80s songs from the Big Four. You put that, you sandwich that in between, Caught in a Mosh and Master of Puppets, and I'm not gonna know the difference. I would say you're going, oh yeah, these guys are, just they're right from the thick of, thrash being heavy. This must have been their one thing. And no, they're doing old school shit that they really liked growing up.
Yeah, and they're working on a new album right now.
Really? Because honestly, it's thrash, classic thrash masterclass, honestly.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff. But that song in particular, just being able to visualize, and it just took me back to just when you're a kid listening to metal for the first time, and you're just really getting into it and getting aggressive, and fun stuff, man.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
And that's what I said to you last weekend. I feel like they take a little bit of inspiration from like the likes of Metallica and stuff.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, very very old school Metallica, and I get on some of the faster guitars and stuff. A lot of it I get kind of some like an Anthraxy vibe too, which I really dig as well. Yeah, very very fun.
Yeah, Executioner's Tax was the first track that I heard off of this album, and it was pretty much I just took Executioner's Tax from this album and that was how I knew Power Trip for a long time. Until relatively recently, and then I decided to start listening to the album in its entirety and have had zero regrets. Executioner's Tax I found while I was in the military, and the music video takes it in that direction a little bit, actually. So the music video just shows them in a pretty small venue rocking out, they're doing the band thing.
Sure.
It's a band video style music video at first, but then it starts interspersing clips of like old videos of like all kinds of random war stuff. There's like in the middle of the music video, there's like a short clip of ISIS doing donuts in some kind of armored personnel carrier. And it'll cut to like dudes with AK-47s with gas masks, and then it'll show like missiles launching and like blah blah blah, and then it starts cutting to different world leaders, and it goes, this is why I think it's kind of targeted at America, because it started showing like different world leaders and atrocities and things like that, and it was like, oh, here's Kim Jong-un, and then here's Stalin. I don't think he's actually in the video, but just an example. Like, it's like showing dictators and people that we traditionally think of as evil, and then it shows Donald Trump, and then it shows a nuclear bomb.
I don't think.
And then it goes back to Donald Trump, and it like has a little clip of him smiling right before a building gets wiped out by an explosion.
I don't think they like him very good.
Nah, it doesn't seem that way. But it's interesting because I could almost read it the other direction, where they're like, "Fuck yeah, war."
Honestly, when I listened to Executioner's Tax and I kind of read through the lyrics, I got the feeling that, like, this might be weird, but like somebody was lusting for death. Like
that, it kind of is. It's kind of, a friend of mine and I that talk about music a lot. He wishes to maintain anonymity, but he does not like metal very much at all. He likes a little bit of metal, but I was trying to introduce him to more. And I showed him some power metal, and he was like, dude, this sounds like an anime intro. He's like, I can see all the anime characters in my head right now. Like, this is totally... And so I showed him Executioner's Tax, and he's like, I don't really want to listen to this right now, but what anime is this intro for?
I will tell you now, I'm not going to lie, I did get a vibe. Some of the guitars and stuff reminded me of... actually a Japanese metal band, Maximum the Hormone.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Many people
know. I didn't make that connection, but I could totally see
they
that.
They did a couple of the themes for Death Note, and some of it just a little, because you gotta understand, I don't listen to a ton of it, but they are one of the metal bands that I've frequently kind of gone back to. Then it's kind of frame of reference of like, okay, yeah, this sounds like, it's heavy just like this, and these guys' vocals sound like this, and, this is influenced by that. So it's just one of those bands that I kind of pulled from a little bit, at least with some of the songs that I heard. I want to say the one that I heard when I was, or I thought of them when I heard it, I believe it was either Waiting Around to Die or Nightmare Logic. One of the two, I was really just like, oh, okay, this reminds me of this.
Big Maximum Hormone vibes from those songs?
Yeah, a little bit.
Nice.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. I've listened to a little bit of Maximum the Hormone, but I haven't like extensively perused them.
They're one of those, they have some songs where you're like, all right, you're doing the haha Japanese thing, but no, there's an album.
I get really big System of a Down vibes from them.
Kind of. I mean, they're not as shouty as
right, not necessarily lyrically. I mean, more like
as in terms of vocal style. But I will say the one that I go back to with, you know what, they do draw comparisons to System of a Down, so you're not wrong.
There we go.
According to Wikipedia,
literally right there.
I guess the more I think about it, no,
like before the show.
I guess you're on like early System. I could definitely see it if I'm thinking about like first album Toxicity. Yeah. You know what? You're not wrong. That makes sense. This is the one that I listen to. This is the one that's got the Death Note themes on it. I'm gonna try to not to botch this.
You're gonna.
Bu Ikikaisu.
That sounds right.
The ones that I remember being awesome, like Zetsubo Billy, that's from Death Note. What's Up People is Death Note. Kyokatsu is really good. Louisiana Bob is very heavy and fast paced. They have a couple of these that are definitely like the chick singing and but with the guitars, and it's kind of silly. But I mean, there's some this would be an album that I could recommend if you enjoy. If you enjoyed this Power Trip record, for sure.
Awesome.
I mean,
I'll check it out.
It's what gave me it's what the vibe I got anyway.
So, to finish my thought, the anime intro, I like you were saying, there's like a lust for violence on this record. I totally agree, because my answer to my friend when he asked me, what anime intro is this metal? I told him, yeah, it's like the trenches of World War I, but there's a Giga Chad with a giant axe killing people.
Yeah, not wrong.
Actually, when you said that, the first thing I thought was Death Note. So,
No,
and
really?
then you brought that up, so I was like,
And he like doesn't get out of the way. Anybody who doesn't get out of the way or get chopped up, they just get stepped on.
That's
Like,
right.
Yeah.
because you could see Light Yagami as an executioner with an axe any day.
Yeah. That axe being the pen.
We got an AMV
The
in
pen
the
is
making.
mightier
boys.
than the
We got an
axe, they
AMV.
say.
Some dude listening is gonna be like, "Oh, it's fucking 2007 again. Let's do it."
Let's fucking do it. Yeah, so the second half of the album actually works for me a little better.
I think that was my favorite part of the album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like pretty much if I were to like start the album at my favorite point to start it, it would be the halfway point of Nightmare Logic.
Yeah.
I think at the midway point of Nightmare Logic, the album hits a stride that pretty much doesn't end.
Yeah. No.
Because you go right around the 240 mark, there is like one of the grooviest, smoothest, which is a weird way to describe chugs, but one of the grooviest, smoothest chug guitar lines in the entire album. And then that just carries in, and then you have Waiting Around to Die, which is like absolutely one of the most violent songs on the album.
That was one of probably my second favorite track on the album.
I wouldn't say it's that violent. That was my favorite song on the album. I don't think it's that violent. More so as they're saying, "Hey, don't be a fucking pussy."
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I got. It's the note that I took is disgust with somebody who has given up on changing their life.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you there.
Also, Nightmare Logic. I was listening to that and listening to the lyrics. Like they're saying, you gotta do what you gotta do to win, but like the things they're saying, I'm pretty sure it's against the Geneva Convention. Like, I don't think it's okay.
No, it's definitely not. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna try and break this thing down, like, it's pretty quickly gonna devolve into like meat-headed like
But
BS. But it's
the
just
rules.
it's just an expression.
We got rules, and they're
The
saying, "Fuck
rules.
the rules. We're gonna do whatever we want."
It's just rage. It's just raw rage in music form, and I love it. It has like this sense to me of like a lot of mass moving quickly.
Yes.
It's like the sound of, it's like the musical sound of like a tank rolling forward, or like some like defensive lineman is about to fucking smear you in a bar.
That's
like
it.
That's the sound that it makes while he's
That's
running
it,
at you.
man. Yeah, this
You know
is
what I mean?
it. This is like, dude, you could just visualize like like fucking Mike Singletary is coming at you at like 25 miles an hour, and just the stream of piss running down the quarterback's leg.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, just power, you know.
Yeah, all these songs have been getting stuck in my head too. That was part of what made me pick it, because I was like, damn, I'm like trying to go to sleep, and Waiting Around to Die is running through my head.
But that's kind of where I've been on my last two album choices. It's not necessarily I'm looking at my CD shelf going, I really like this one. It's staying in the fire with an album that I have been going back to and going, well, you've been going back to this album for some reason. Why not cover it on the show? Stay in the fire of what's most recently been in your head, and just explain why you enjoy going back to it so much. And
Yeah, I like that.
And that's kind of where I've been. I mean, because I know with Logan will agree. Like when I pick my album, like Lullabies, I mean, that's not my favorite Queens of the Stone Age album by a long shot.
That's not, and I think.
But it's
one that's something to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, once, because I've got a lot of stuff in my head about when we're talking about the album.
Yeah.
But it's like that album does not get so much praise, because it's like it comes right after Songs for the Deaf.
Bingo.
And comes right before Era
Era
Vulgaris.
Vulgaris.
And it's like you're sandwiched between two of the best Queen's albums.
And that's why I went and I revisited it fairly recently, is because I mean, Queens of Stone Age is their top 5 band for me, and I'm sitting there going, what? Like, every once in a while I'll be like, that's a good album, but then I think about it and I'm like, well, in the grand scheme of things, okay, Songs for the Deaf was so good, and Era Vulgaris and it was popular, and Era Vulgaris is pretty popular too. But then I'm like, I know that there's big songs on Lullabies, but I don't hear anybody talk about it. So then I go to listen to it. So then when we're coming up for an idea for the second episode, I'm like, I gotta do it because it's been in my head. So I totally get staying with what you've been on about with the songs running through you and all that.
It's doing picking an album for the podcast is a little bit of an interesting process.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times I don't have a full fleshed out 20, 30 minutes worth of anything to say about an album when I pick it. But I know that it has the potential to get there.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I was invited on, 20 albums just came to me, and I was
Really?
just like, oh, what's it gonna be?
My biggest concern is getting to an album too soon and not doing it justice. So hey guys, you're watching practice right now.
That's why I'm not covering.
Sorry, Power Trip.
That's why I'm not covering, Pixies or, TV on the radio yet or something like that, because I don't want to.
I came out of the gate with my favorite album ever. So
hey, there you go. There you go.
Confidence, the power move.
Thus, the other reason why I'm doing Lullabies to Paralyze and not Era Vulgaris or Songs for the Deaf, but
yeah. So come back to Power Trip real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Ruination, I think, is probably the linchpin for me, being able to say that this is an expression of anger about our country.
Yeah, I think the last 4 songs on this album especially tell a story.
A little bit.
And they're saying, like, waiting around to die. Ruination, like, you're sitting around here waiting to die. Like,
I'm glad you picked up on that.
And then Ruination, it's over. It's done. Like,
pull that mic closer to you.
Yeah, it's like waiting around to die is that moment where they're like, hey, shit's not good right now. We need to do something about this, and getting angry about the people that don't want to or don't see the problem. Ruination expresses like, well, here we are now.
It's fucked. It's done.
Shit's not good, and it's not going back. And it kind of sounds that way. It sort of has a Fall of Rome vibe to it to me.
Mm-hmm.
That goes straight into If Not Us Then Who, which is kind of like a call to action, like, hey, you got to stop being a pussy and do something about this.
100%.
Yeah.
That track, If Not Us Then Who, again, contender for the best track on the album. The instrumentalists are just in the pocket the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the several peaks in momentum. The vocals, as you were talking about earlier, they have a really, really good mix of distortion but intelligibility. We're not in the black metal zone of just squealing.
Yeah.
Or
like sounding like Cookie Monster.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He has that. He has that rasp. It's not even rasp. It's more than rasp. But it's almost like he's blown his voice out from screaming at people, and now he's singing.
That makes sense at the point of this album.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of an exclamation point on there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fade out on If Not Us Then Who is interesting to me because it's so. It almost suggests like a continuing problem, like because it's so. What is a word? What word am I looking for? It's very linear. There are breaks in it, but they're temporary. It's a short break with a little drum fill and then straight back into the guitar, just and it does that for a long time. Which to me kind of suggests like, If Not Us Then Who, and then that guitar is kind of representative of this issue, and it's not stopping.
Right.
It just fades out eventually. Like, this fucking shit's not going away.
I really dig that, because that's not something that I necessarily would have thought of, but the way you bring that up, I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my favorite track on the record. I've said that a lot. I feel like I have a lot of favorites. This thing is like a thrash Boston self-titled. It's just all hits.
Yeah.
Crucifixion. So Crucifixion actually, it's my favorite guitar moments. The intro is some of my favorite guitar moments, and I found out that actually the guy that did the mixing and production is playing the guitar on this track. It's actually a different guitarist. But it's so... he did a really good job of keeping it cohesive with the previous guitarist. It doesn't sound like a new guy.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to tell.
Yeah. I had no idea until very recently. I was reading about it.
I will say about Crucifixion, because I listened to it a couple times last night, because I kept getting interrupted at work, having to find parts for people. That is the fastest moving 5.5 minute song I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, if I had to look it up, I would not have guessed that was the longest track at all.
I absolutely not. I would have assumed Soul Sacrifice off the top. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the close of the album, the opening and the closing of the album is kind of interesting to me because it opens and closes the same way. It actually loops seamlessly if you have it on repeat.
Yep.
You won't be able to tell the end of Crucifixion just became the beginning of Soul Sacrifice.
I like that.
Okay, I did have that happen.
Yeah.
I had it on... I was listening to the album. I forgot I had the album on repeat. Yeah. I sometimes I hit buttons and shit. And I have gapless playback on Spotify.
Yeah, exactly.
And it literally just did exactly what you said. And I had to think about it for a second until Soul Sacrifice starts up and gets to that really heated part about a minute in. And I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, all right.
Yeah, it opens to these kind of like digitized, almost like the Super Nintendo interpretation of what a bomb blowing up would sound like.
Yeah.
And it's just like all these little ones interspersed. It kind of sounds like a 16-bit Battlefield.
Yeah.
That's the fade in, and that's also the fade out, and it's how they link together when you loop it.
It makes me wonder if they did that they did that on purpose.
I believe it was intentional because I think it also plays towards the fade out of If Not Us Then Who. It's a cycle. It's not going anywhere. It's looping.
I love touches to kind of the album engineering like that. Yeah. It reminds me of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Nonagon Infinity.
Yeah, Nonagon Infinity.
And how you can listen to that song, album in any order, front to back, and everything loops.
And it's not particularly long, and it's so high paced. They're almost like cousins.
They really are, and that's where I found myself really enjoying this one. Is like for one, this has given me a real newfound appreciation for kind of shorter albums. Whereas I think before I'm sitting there like, what could you possibly have to say with 30 minutes?
Right.
And now, I mean, I'm sitting here going, honest to God, like I'm looking at that and I'm looking at like Nonagon Infinity and stuff like that. And then sometimes when I jump into a longer album, I'm like, oh my God, like I should have listened to this one first because Power Trip was like, I mean, gone, you know. But no, it's I definitely came out of this really appreciating a half-hour runtime and just keeping all your best stuff to the front and just here's the cream. That's it. I definitely enjoyed this one for sure.
Well, I'm glad you guys got something out of it.
Yeah, it was a good album, I think. And it really brought me back to like the days of my past where I was like and I like doing that, like every once in a while just going back. So this was good to just a palate cleanser, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say this album has, I mean, pretty high marks. I mean, Pitchfork gave it an 8.4. I mean, that's not anything to sneeze at. We know how hoity-toity they are.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even know that.
And then it wound up on a lot of best lists. Vice named it the number 4 album of the 2010s. Metal Sucks was named it the number 6 album, or metal album of the 2010s. It wound up on number 11 on Rolling Stone's top 20 metal albums of 2017. Revolver gave it number 2 on their best albums of 2017. They're more of a metal magazine.
Nice.
Loudwire, this was their number 1 album, metal album of 2017. So I mean,
I actually didn't know any of that. I found it through the Melonhead. Shouts out to Fantano.
Oh no kidding. Yeah. I only just checked out his review for it today, because I know Melon likes his. Yeah, Melon's interesting. As far as rap and stuff, the more experimental and weird, the better.
Yeah.
And he likes his metal, but he can be, as far as punk and stuff goes, he can be a bit of a gatekeeper.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he shits on fucked up so much. It's overblown and it's overproduced and da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to give you, like, some of their albums are long, but, like, they're different. You know, you like
It's all
different.
it's all opinions.
You like different when people. Yeah. Anyway.
It's all opinions. Nobody should take
Anyway.
Fantano's opinion any more seriously than anybody on the street, and they shouldn't take ours either.
I don't take it as word of God. That's just my main point of contention with the guys. He shits on fucked up too much.
It's okay. You gave Fear Inoculum a 4, so.
He did he shit on your band too, didn't he?
He did.
It's
okay.
It's all right. It happens. He rated. I mean, granted, I didn't rate them very highly either, but most of the Pixies comeback albums, he shit on those too. So, yeah. So all in all, Power Trip, Nightmare Logic. Nightmare Logic was good.
Power Trip, Nightmare Logic. If you have 32 minutes and you don't hate metal, give it a shot.
Yeah, definitely. 30. I mean.
It might be 34.
If we're looking at, it's 32:51.
Okay.
And if we're looking at, I mean, even if you just had one song off this thing, my recommendation is Executioner's Tax. I think it's the most throwback sound. If you are, especially if you're just one of those people who's like, give me my old thrash, old school Metallica, you're a bunch of sellouts post, 88. Give this one a shot. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a little basic if something like Death is more your stream. If you want to hear a little bit of King Crimson in your thrash metal, you're not going to get that here.
No.
It's got that hardcore punk DNA.
Yep.
But it's certainly not any kind of waste of 32:51.
No, certainly not. I mean, this is, like I've said over and over, not a genre I go to off my hip, and I came out of it really enjoying it. Favorite songs for you guys on this thing?
Definitely Waiting Around to Die.
Yeah, Waiting Around to Die for sure. Great song. Probably my second favorite.
Man, it's actually hard for me to choose. That's how I know I picked a good one. I'm probably going to go with Executioner's Tax on this. It doesn't have my favorite guitar work on it, but just the imagery that it creates, the vocal delivery, the drum fill, the little islands of drum fills throughout the song. It's really good.
Well, plus it got you into the band.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, right on. So, I think I'm gonna be a good host here, and we'll talk about Tyranny next. Let me just switch my lovely graphic over. All right, there we go.
Yeah, all right. So
take me through your journey with this album, Logan.
The thing about this album is it's a lot. It's hard to listen to. It's long. It's psychedelic. It's experimental. It's screechy. It's sad. It's, there's so much going against this album. But, the way that it's executed, I think is just so amazing. And it is my favorite album of all time.
Hey, okay, wow. Yeah,
swinging for the fences on the first show. I like it.
You know what? I appreciate your moxie. Let's keep rolling.
Yeah, so I don't know. I found out about this album about, I don't know, my buddy who put me onto the Strokes told me about this album probably right after it came out. And this album kind of just fit my lifestyle at the time so well. And you can take what you want from that. But yeah, I just really, really dig this album. I've been listening to it for years, and this is one that I will always come back to. So I just love it. It's hard because Julian Casablancas, I think, is one of the best songwriters of our generation, and I'd say it's hard to go against that.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely written some great anthems. If we're talking about, especially, I mean, the Strokes, we talked about in the last episode. I view them as instrumental as the White Stripes in kind of getting rock back, just garagey roots rock back when in an era where we had lost it for years to teen pop and TRL and new metal took over. Limp Bizkit was the biggest band in the world, and then out of that late 01, early 02, right as Nickelback's taking on the top 40 airwaves. Everywhere else, and your MTV2s of the world and all that are playing White Stripes and Strokes and the Vines and the Hives and kind of that era of bands. And then not too long after, we get Arctic Monkeys and we go on from there. But the Strokes are certainly instrumental in that. I think Is This It came out in 01, same year as White Blood Cells, and both of those albums are, game changers. They're staples in terms of 2000s rock and kind of semi-indie stuff. Yeah, just wonderful.
Yeah, so, something that Casablancas brought to the table for rock, I think, was improving production values.
Oh yeah.
His
Yeah.
Their studio works feel to me like they have more in common polish wise, not necessarily their musical themes, but as far as the polish, the amount of production that goes into them, they have a lot more in common with like a rap record than a classic rock album. There's a lot of attention detail. There's a lot of attention to detail. It's very clean,
very smooth too. Yeah.
And that's all Julian. Like he'll go and he slaves away at this.
You can tell he's a perfectionist. I mean, and you can tell like with the years that he kind of takes between his records and stuff. I think there was a string there. I think from 01 to 05, it seemed like every couple of years, the Strokes were coming out with an album, and then it's a 5-year hiatus till we got Angles, and he had a solo record in between there. But still, I mean, he definitely takes a number of years until we get something different. I think this last go around, what was it, 6 years since the last Strokes record, and we just got the latest one.
Yeah, something like that.
But I mean, it's weird. He takes his time, but he keeps busy all at once. Interesting guy for sure. But what I like about this album and what I like about the Voidz in general is this is Julian Casablancas just flexing his experimental muscles more so than he ever has.
In his truest form, this is Julian Casablancas doing what he wants to do when he wants to do it and saying, hey, like, I'm going to create my own record label so I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm a big fan of that attitude. Because,
yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I actually hadn't listened to the Voidz prior to this. My initial impression of the Voidz was that I think they're better than the Strokes, in my opinion.
Oh, there we go.
I like the Voidz more.
I think the Strokes is my favorite band, but, like, the Voidz is, like, a number 3 for me.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. Like, I have a hard time choosing between them because they're both so good to me.
Right, right.
And I think one thing about this album and anything that Julian will produce is, like, there are some deep political tones in there.
I noticed that as well, yeah.
And he is very political. And it's hard to take that because, as I said, this guy's been famous since he was 18 years old. Like, his whole adulthood has been fame and fortune. And, like, it's hard to be like, oh, yeah, this guy's got a good head on his shoulder. He knows what he's talking about in terms of politics because it's like, what do you know, man? Like,
might be a little isolated by his lifestyle is what you're saying.
No kidding.
Yeah. I can see that
perspective
for sure.
I mean, I'll tell you, like, off the top with this thing, I did note when when you start off, Take Me in Your Army, for instance, it's already off to kind of a weird start.
For sure. I think that song just comes in and says, like, I couldn't derive a meaning from that. Like,
no, it's smooth. It's it sounds like, I can only describe it. It sounds like an alien. Like, that's all I could really take from it is I'm like, okay, Julian Casablancas, he's starting this off. He already from listening to that, you're like, this is gonna be weird.
This is Julian Casablancas saying, hey, you know the Strokes? This isn't that.
Yeah, like this is it, he draws a line in the sand right off the bat, which I appreciate, honestly. It's kind of like if you're coming in wanting your rock hooks and your garage sound, and no,
you're gonna get these experimental guitars and instruments and this psychedelic. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah.
So hold on.
But yeah,
take me in your army. Let's go.
Hold on for the ride and keep an open mind. You know, because it only really gets better from there, in my opinion. Because when you get to like Crunch Punch, that's a bit more of what I expected. But he takes it pretty high pitched on some of his vocals and some of that guitar work and stuff. And that's where I was officially in.
You know what the thing about Julian is, like, that high pitched stuff, you think it's like auto-tune or fake or whatever, but like seeing him in concert twice now, that is 100% Julian. Like the new Strokes album, there is no work on his voice at all, and I
love that
he goes for it.
That's where I find especially lately, like, I love going and looking up like live editions of certain songs as a kind of in younger, I hated it. I hated downloading a music or a song off of a not LimeWire site, and I didn't use it. I used downloads.nl. It was like some Netherlandian site where I got all my music for free because
I used LimeWire and gave my parents laptop aids.
We were too cheap to like buy music, and we were just poor kids with no jobs. So it was like, I would hate downloading a song and then getting a live cut and being like, fuck, you know.
It's funny that you should mention that. So I don't even know if I should say this. Were you guys ever aware of the like index of MP3 thing you could do on Google?
No.
So I don't know how this worked or why this worked, but when I was in high school, I used to download music onto the Kelso High School computers so that I could listen to music while I was doing other shit.
Yeah, dude.
And you can literally, well, at least back then, you could literally go on Google and type in index of MP3 and then the artist, and you would just get like the most plain Jane peer-to-peer site with links, and you could just click the link and download the song. Like,
dude, that's great.
Yeah, and it worked at high school, so I was like,
That
shit,
is-
this is amazing.
Well, so like
I was using YouTube to MP3 and shit.
Yeah.
I still do every once in a while, like if I'm needing something on my phone, if I want to make a ringtone or something. But that was how I got. I had to download a couple like indie songs back when I was in like junior or senior year. I had my little 2 gig Sony Walkman until Skylar passed me down his green iPod Nano when he got an iPod Touch for Christmas. But
Music and Garbage does not endorse piracy. The lawyers told me to say that.
Music and Garbage music and Garbage may or may not endorse piracy. The lawyers didn't tell me to say that.
The guest does endorse piracy of any kind.
See, so we're on every side of the fence. There's something for everybody. But these days I love getting live cuts, and like you're saying, as far as vocals, I love hearing that raw vocal. I love listening to a song and hearing somebody get high or sing something in such a weird tone, and then immediately wondering, okay, how does this sound live? How do they maintain?
Right.
For instance, one of the first live tracks that really I got into was there's a live version of the White Stripes doing Icky Thump, where Jack is got the keyboard and he's strumming on the guitar too, and some of those where some of those verses he just freely belts it, and with his high-pitched voice it almost turns into kind of like he's yelling, like he's screaming. Anyway, I get the same feeling from that.
You're saying that you like Come Down Machine.
Yeah.
And the song in concert that made me realize, wow, Julian can really do this is One Way Trigger.
Oh yeah.
Because he's got that high pitched falsetto in there.
Yeah. I found that album immediately after boot camp. I found it at a library.
I remember
actually.
that was on your laptop when you came and visited, and we played D&D that one year. Yeah.
Yep. That was that was actually kind of my introduction to the Strokes, and from what I understand, that's actually not a super beloved album by the fan base.
It's not.
Yeah, it's.
I mean,
sorry,
I do like the album.
Yeah.
That was like, because when I came into the Strokes, it was Angles, and then Come Down Machine, and then the first 3.
See,
Right.
I remember when Angles first came out, because I had a subscription to Spin magazine in like 10th grade, and they were on the cover of like the May 2010 issue, and they were like, the Strokes are back, and I'm just like, the Strokes, and I only knew them because Reptilia was in Guitar Hero 3, and then I was like, oh, that's my favorite song to play. Oh shit, I should check these guys out. And yeah,
Dude, Machu Picchu is a banger.
That is a banger, dude. I will say though, I think my favorite Strokes album is First Impressions of Earth. Like I was really into Is This It and Room on Fire for a while. I think Room on Fire is actually, funny enough, the only one I own. But First Impressions of Earth, it just, I don't care if it's got all the radio songs. Like that one's got so many damn hooks on that thing. It's wonderful. But no, so like when we got to Crunch Punch, and actually for me, Crunch Punch and Mutually Assured Destruction almost blended together.
I think all the first 3 songs are kind of like their own little opening to the album. They kind of all go together. I mean, Mutually Assured Destruction is way harder than
it is.
I just think if I was to view the album in parts, I'd view these 3 as part 1.
Okay.
Can I just say I hate my neighbors right now?
Is that a baby?
They
I don't
wanted to
know.
be on the podcast.
I don't know what it is, but
Dude,
it's
I'm
driving
not
me
afraid to
ape
punch a
shit.
baby. I'll go over there.
But then
Power trip's getting to you.
like you said, you get to it's essentially just a starter. It's, then you get into Human Sadness.
Human Sadness.
Which,
and we're about to go in here.
Oh my God. Like this song right here, and like we talked about, not even really knowing the lyrics and stuff, but you can feel it just listening to the instrumentation and the music, and it's running in my head right now, that chorus with the high pitched and the screeching and shit. It keeps going, and this thing, I will say, it feels like a near 11-minute song, but I don't mind it. This is a thing that, and this goes to show you how interesting Julian is. Any other album, this would close.
Oh yeah.
But with this album, Tyranny, Human Sadness is fourth, and it throws me every time, but it's so damn good. This I think I told you when I first heard it. I'm like, this is what we get when. this is what we get when, if Julian Casablancas sang for the Flaming Lips. It's that weirdness, but you've got all that great electric instrumentation and those reverbs and that noise. Yeah,
this song comes in like 3 parts, and I want to say it's like a modern day. I'm about to make a big statement. It's like a modern day Bohemian Rhapsody.
Wow.
Ooh.
I like it. I like the take though.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a brave take, but I like it.
So like the themes of this song, I think it's like there's the love and loss of love. Like it comes out and it's saying, can you fix my tie? Like you're talking about a friend. Can you come fix my tie? Like whatever. And then it goes from being like a friend that you love or a lover, somebody that you're in a relationship with, and then it goes into some more sad stuff like you just lost that person, like that's the loss of a friend or a lover. And then it goes into like war. And in the video for this song, this part, it goes this starts getting like the first change.
Yeah.
And the video for this, like this is the only part that shows lyrics, and it goes, is this not true, the things that we did? And they say, come here at once and look at what they did. And it's saying, like, this is you. Like, you're sitting on your couch and you're like, did we just bomb an embassy or something? Like, this is about war. This is saying, look at this fucked up shit we did. And it's saying, hey, come down and come here and watch some TV. And it's just, like, saying that we're so used to, like, all this shit that goes on. And,
Is that actually a cop or is that a kid?
that's a child.
That sounded like a siren. I thought there was cops outside.
I thought that was a siren too.
Yeah. And so it's like saying all this shit like, hey, come watch some TV. Look at all this shit we did. And people are just like, we're so numb to it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh God, yeah.
The desensitization is pretty real.
And that's a subject that, I mean, especially nowadays. Mind you, this was written and released in 2014. It's only become more prevalent now in 2020, where it's just like, oh yeah, there's rioting and another guy got killed by a policeman, and we got another election nobody gives a shit about right now because who cares, both sides suck, and it's this and this and this out here, we're in the middle of a pandemic too, and fuck, like, definitely a theme of desensitization there.
And then like it ends with a Julian's commentary on politics and capitalism. Like he's saying pretty much like they bring back the tie imagery, and I think in the end the tie imagery is like the corporations being like, here, let me fix that for you, let me fix your tie, and like do what we say even if you don't get it. Like Julian said, this album is a lot about capitalism, and he says capitalism can work, but only if people understand it, and people don't understand it a lot of the time. And he's saying like that's what it's all about. We're under a system that people don't really understand, and that's what he's saying.
Yeah, for sure.
And just like besides all that, like that's my first deep dive into this song, but like this song just goes from one point to another, just screechy, just sad, just like, what do you think? The chorus you were talking about, it's in between right and wrong,
Yeah, beyond all ideas of right and
Yeah.
wrong, there is a field. I'll be meeting you
Yeah.
there.
What do you think that means?
I mean, I don't know. That's tough to say. I mean, he could be talking about like a manifestation of like a gray area, and that there is some level of in between. And, do you want to shut that window?
This window is open?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
You know how hot it gets in here?
Yeah.
Brace yourself.
It's a little better.
Brace yourselves, boys. It's gonna get warm. I mean, it's definitely something like that, or maybe it's just like a way. When he's saying that there's a field and he'll be meeting you there, it's kind of just like, when you're shutting out everything but that other person, and you're not even caring about what is and isn't, and it not having to deal in absolutes all the time, and
And that's the thing about this whole album is like, you can take so much from it. There's so much to interpret from this.
Yeah, the beyond all ideas of right and wrong, there's a field. I'll be meeting you there. That, to me, in the context of this album, it almost to me sounds like Julian saying like, through all of this shit, we're all humans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we all have a common ground,
Yeah.
whether we choose to accept that or not.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's better than I could put it.
Whole album kind of it says it right there. It's tyranny. Like, this album is talking about the things in life that are tyrannous, the things that have a tyranny over us, like, because there's so much. Like, I don't know.
And I will say, I mean, this was the first single from this album too. I mean, Julian went all in.
Just came out hard,
hey,
didn't he?
Yeah.
Here's an 11-minute song. Go for it.
Yeah, you know who else recently did that was Sufjan Stevens dropped a single from his new record, and it was like 12 minutes or something.
No kidding. You
Really?
know, I
Yeah.
love Sufjan Stevens.
He's excellent.
And I'm here for him. I guarantee you one of us will bring one of his in
it'll happen.
relatively soon. Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah. Wonderful singer-songwriter there. So...
Then we move on to I feel like Human Sadness is a whole part within itself.
Sure.
If I'm thinking about this album in parts, that's part 2.
Sure.
And then we go to Where No Eagles Fly, Father Electricity, Johann von Bronx. That is a whole section right there. That's part 3.
Yeah. Johann von Bronx, I really enjoyed. It's just some of the like really quirky guitars and instrumentation on that thing.
I think I like Johann von Bronx because when I read the lyrics and stuff, like that was like when I first listened to this album, that was my favorite song.
Yeah.
And like now getting into it, like there's 2 different perspectives in this song, like the workers and the boss. Like,
now I will tell you, I like that you're talking about breaking this up in parts, because that is essentially how this almost felt for me on a listen. Take Me and Your Army through Mutually Assured Destruction almost blend together up until you hit Human Sadness, which is definitely, I mean, it's its own sentient deal. And then up until, Where No Eagles Fly to Johann von Bronx, those flow in and out of each other pretty well. And then my second favorite song on this thing, Business Dog, is where, because it's definitely one of the grimier, kind of faster hitting songs on this thing.
It's fast and short and dirty.
And that's where it switches tones and picks up again for me. So I relate on the way that you're breaking this thing up.
Yeah, I like, so like the part 3 is like Where No Eagles Fly, Father Electricity, Johann von Bronx. It's like saying, Where No Eagles Fly is saying, hey, there's like shit going on in the workers unions and shit, and there's the bosses up there and they're assholes, and like I think there's kind of a revolution going on in this song.
Definitely.
And then Father Electricity, I think this song goes to show that like not all things that are tyranny are bad. Like, we're slaves to electricity, our phones, everything, and like we would be nowhere without it, but like we're slaves to the electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, only becomes more and more relevant as the years go on, I think.
Truly. Especially with Elon Musk talking about he wants to put chips in people's heads now.
Yeah. Yeah, Elon went from being like the coolest guy ever to me questioning what he's doing real quick.
But Father Electricity, that when you get in there and he's going da 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 da.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I feel you on Business Dog for sure.
Business Dog, I like it because it's like a character piece. Following some guy who's just like, oh, hey, I'm all about my money. I'm going to go to work. It's like a Wolf of Wall Street type of thing. It's like...
That's exactly what I thought, too. Yeah. Especially, I mean, even at the very end where you... Good work, business dog. Good job, business dog. Yeah, I love it.
It's him saying, yeah, I did good.
That's really...
I made that money today.
Like that self-praise, but you could really see yourself patting a dog on the head. Good job, business dog.
It kind of... It's not the same thing, obviously, but it kind of, to me, draws a connection in my brain between that and Dogs by Pink Floyd, the album.
Okay,
You know, there's like 3 types of people. Dogs, sheep, and pig, or dogs, pigs, and sheep, I think.
Yeah.
Whichever order they do it in.
I think you're right, yeah.
Wow. That's a fun little connection. I like.
Yeah.
Is that the album with Money on it? Or
no, that's Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, see, I don't know Pink Floyd for shit.
Come on, Mike, that's Dark Side of the Moon.
I don't know Pink Floyd by the album. I just know I like the
hits.
song and that song. Yeah, embarrassingly so.
And
but,
from Business Dog, Xerox, and I told you.
Okay, now I know you told me about Xerox. I love the contrast in the fast pace go of Business Dog, and then Xerox is very spacey and yeah,
it's like bubbles coming up and popping.
Bingo.
Like, and it's like you said, Take Me in Your Army was like an alien sounding. This is alien sounding. This song is just so trippy and fucking psychedelic. And I told you, I'm not gonna say it explicitly, but this song got me through some pretty wild nights with you know, little bit of you know, some shit was going on.
Yeah.
And this was like my song when I was going out in college and doing some things when I was having fun. Every night that I would go out and do something, I would say, guys, we gotta play Xerox.
It's important to have those songs.
Yeah.
Sure.
Even to this day, like this year, like I was sitting with my buddies hanging out, and you know, shit was happening, and I said it was end of the night, like night was slowing down, and I say, you know what we need? The same guys I lived with in college, and I said, you know what we need? Xerox. Makes sense.
Spin it.
Well, and then you get to probably, in my opinion, probably the weirdest song on this album.
Oh, absolutely.
Dare I Care, which has...
I think this is my third favorite song on the album, being Human Sadness, Xerox, Dare I Care.
It's long, and it's got this big old Bollywood flavor
it's
to
Arabic.
it. It's very...
It's got a weird sound to it. And I think it goes from Xerox, which sounds super alien, to Dare I Care, which is like super robot.
This is gonna sound really stupid and nerdy, but the first time I heard, it's so stupid. The first time I heard this song, okay, because I'm a wrestling fan. All I could think of is there's these 2 Indian wrestlers. One of them is a 7-foot tall guy, the Great Khali.
Oh, I actually know him.
Yeah, and big old. And then more recently, there's this guy, me and my buddy Tyler, we kind of didn't like, and now we have a fascination with, Jinder Mahal, who was like this big jobber for a while, and then they like, hey, let's put the world title on him and put him in a suit and a turban at the same time, and I listen to this song and I just think about Jinder Mahal, and it's the dumbest thing. And it's not related to this song at all. Outside of, it's got some in it. That's it. That's it. But I do like this song quite a bit.
It's just so weird and abstract.
Well,
you have to have that India influence if you're gonna have a psychedelic record.
Yeah,
the Beatles laid the blueprint down.
Bingo.
Now, if you're gonna be psychedelic, you have to be Middle Eastern.
And even an album by another band that has a totally different style than this one, a Japanese band actually, Kikagaku Moyo. They do kind of psychedelic rock. They have a song on there I really like, or an album, Forest Lost Children, and I got into it because there's a song on there called Smoke and Mirrors. and you can get some sitar in there, but then right after that, Streets of Calcutta, which is just immediate, fast-moving, like Bollywood style music. I get the same feeling off of Dare I Care here. I just appreciate it. And I appreciate the good sitar once in a while.
You know, I was reading up on this album earlier today, and because this has always been one of my favorite songs, and I was just reading about what's going on, and there's people like, because Julian has worked with Kesha a little bit.
Really?
And he's produced some of her songs.
I didn't know that.
This song apparently is like about what's going on with Kesha and her producer.
Really?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, Dare I Care. Wow.
Interesting.
That's actually really, that's some good inside stuff that
Yeah, it's interesting when you find a song that
I
you
never
wouldn't
would have looked
expect.
up. Yeah.
When you find like a song has a background you wouldn't really expect, that's a neat thing. I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nintendo Blood.
Nintendo Blood
wins the record or wins the award for best song title on this album. I mean,
you would say that, wouldn't you?
It's tied up with Johann von Bronx, I think, but yeah.
I think this was like the first song that had come into fruition for this album. It's just super chill, like.
Yeah, it's what I gathered. I mean, very chill sounding song before we get to the closer.
I think what I like about this song is how the guitar sounds like a drum.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It really is. It's just one of those things. But I love manipulation of instrument sound and stuff like that, and taking something to and beyond its intended limit and use. And I think you accomplish it there. I mean, I got a thing for people finding cool ways to play guitars out of tune, or take a synth and as David Bowie said when he described Nine Inch Nails, Reznor bought a synth and threw out the manual and just started making the most distorted, chunky,
it's funny that
weird
you should bring
stuff.
Up Reznor, actually, because the drummer on this album, I didn't know this until today because I was doing a little bit of homework prior.
Yeah, it's a familiar name.
Yeah, he toured with Nine Inch Nails in 2005.
Well, son of a bitch. Yeah, he sure did. That would have been when they were touring with Teeth.
Yeah. And he also played in Wolfmother for a little while.
No kidding. Yeah. Wolfmother gets
Mother.
They're underrated. I think after the public's initial fascination with them, they kind of got branded kind of like Led Zeppelin ripoffs, and then Greta Van Fleet showed up and was like, "Hold my beer."
Yeah. Hey, listen, I am fairly shameless in my music appreciation, and I kind of dug Greta Van Fleet.
Hey, that's fair.
I hope they come out with a third album and it's really good.
That's fair, man. That's fair. You can have that all to yourself.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You can have
I'll keep the whole pie.
The whole pie. Is that picture of I think it's Tom and Jerry or whatever, that meme of cutting a slice of chocolate cake and then lifting the whole cake. So any more thoughts on Tyranny?
Just that Off to War, I think the last song is kind of a really good closer.
Yeah, it's surprisingly so, because when I went in after Human Sadness, I'm like, how are they going to close this thing? How do you end this album? Because this should have been the album, and
yeah, it definitely elevated my opinion of Julian Casablancas. Not that it was in a bad position prior, but I definitely think a little higher of him now.
It shows you his versatility.
Yeah. After listening to some Voidz, and I look forward to listening to them some more. And
their next album is honestly, I might say better, but this one just holds a special place in my heart.
I understand that totally.
Virtue's the one I was a little more familiar with. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what my favorite song is on this thing. I think I remember really liking All Words Are Made Up, but
Pyramid of Bones, 100%.
Yeah,
okay.
I listened to this.
That's a dirty hard rock song.
I did listen to this before I came. I liked Alienation.
Yeah. I remember Alienation being pretty good, but this is one I would need to revisit again.
Yeah.
I remember when it came out a couple years ago, it being pretty highly regarded, but I think at that point in time, I was knee deep in parquet courts and death grips.
That's kind of there's so much music, and so much music comes out that a lot of the times you're just on a different wave when something really great comes out and you just miss it. You know?
Tell me about it. Kids See Ghosts, which is my favorite album of the last 5 years.
Really?
I didn't pay attention to it much when it came out.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. I fucking love Kids See Ghosts.
Wow.
That is my favorite release of the last 5 years.
That's a hot take right there.
I've said it before. It's top 10, top 15 album for me. I'm not joking. I love it. And
so I assume that's going to show up later on once we're a little polished.
Later on, for sure. It's one of those things I didn't pay a ton of... I mean, because like by that point, I liked Kanye, but I was kind of like, okay. But by that time, I was like, all right. And then but I missed it because I was listening to... careful, watch the chords.
I got it.
I was listening to Death Grips and Parquet Courts quite a bit. And then last year, I dug knee deep into it and loved it. Okay, we did not lose audio, thank God. I was worried. No, we're good, because if we'd lost, Brady rolled over that chord last week, so be really careful.
Gotcha.
It's the big one. Yeah, don't even. I would stay as far away from it as possible. Brady rolled over it and we lost a feed, but yeah.
All good now.
I'm excited for this one here. Lullabies. Once Logan gets back, we'll analyze this one, and then.
Yeah, I had actually not heard this record before you selected it, so.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I remember I bought this thing. I don't know if you remember when we went to Tool. We stopped by a couple CD stores. We went to Jackpot Records.
Yeah.
I bought this and the Breeders' Last Splash.
Yep, I do remember that.
And then we went into Millennium Music or whatever, and the guy yelled at me because I didn't tell him that I bought CDs from the store before I put CDs up to the counter to buy. Yeah, I was like, these are from Jackpot Records, because Jackpot Records have tags on the sleeves or the labels that say Jackpot Records.
Yeah.
And he goes, "You needed to show me that when you got in here." And I was just like, "Okay, Santa." He was like a fat dude with a white beard. He looked like George R.R. Martin.
I'm really surprised you remember that.
I'm gonna forget being fucking publicly shamed because I didn't go, "Hey, I bought these 2 doors down."
That reminded me of Bubbles.
I was so fucking like, I was kind of pissed about that, and I haven't been back there since. Like, because I'm like, dude, you read the fucking tag. The tag says Jackpot Records. I'm sorry, you're wearing glasses. That's double excuse for you to not have read that shit.
Oh shit!
Wasn't worth it. What did I get there? I got a copy of Talking Heads' Stop Making Sense, which I could have gotten at Classics like 3 weeks after the fact. Bummed. Really steamed my beans, dude.
I can tell they're still steaming.
They're still steaming.
There's
them.
a grudge there.
I'm like a Squidward. Oh no, you're so angry. You're like a steamed vegetable, only smarter. Okay, so we're moving to Lullabies to Paralyze, and as we brought up earlier, for one, Queens of the Stone Age is a top 5 band for me. I'm pretty sure they're a top 5 band for you.
They're top 2 band.
Top 2 band for you. I think for me they're either 3 or 4. It depends on how I feel about TV on the radio that day. Pixies and Husker Du being my top 2. But as you can see by my car, so looking at this thing, like we talked about, it's sandwiched between 2 more popular albums and more critically acclaimed albums. I mean, Songs for the Deaf, I think many people, when they think Queens of the Stone Age and they're not exactly diehards, go, "Oh, that's the Queen's album right there."
Oh yeah, you're talking about me right now.
There you go. I mean, that's and why wouldn't they? Front to back, that thing's amazing.
That's an incredible album.
And it's one of those things that, alongside, like I talked about with the White Stripes and the Strokes coming through, that album really helped kind of bring back rock, even if it wasn't played on every top 40 station. It was played on a lot of rock stations.
I actually remember my first time I ever heard any Queens of the Stone Age, and
yeah,
it was the commercial for Twisted Metal Black.
No
Really?
kidding.
Yeah.
Which song? Was it Millionaire?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. That song was in
Ding, ding. I love that song.
what was it? Tony Hawk's Underground, I think it was. One of the Tony Hawk's Underground games had Millionaire on it.
There's a song on here that was in Need for Speed Underground 2.
Really? I never played Need for Speed Underground 2.
I forget which one it was.
I'm sure it's in here somewhere. No, it's not.
Might be up at the top.
I will say though, it might be. Yeah, no, they don't care to mention that.
I read that too somewhere. I don't remember where I read it, but while I was studying.
Yeah. So anyway, this one, it's one of those things where, like I said, I was thinking about Queens of the Stone Age's discography, and going, God, nobody talks about this thing.
That's right.
In the grand scheme of things. I mean, aside from maybe their first self-titled album, this one gets the least amount of recognition or mentions. And my curiosity, I'm like, I've heard this thing, but I want to deep dive it. And I have been for the last couple of weeks.
The thing about it is, though, like, this album kind of gets thrown to the wayside.
Yeah.
But it is 100% chock full of fucking bangers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for one, and what's interesting about it is it's got the least Mark Lanigan, like the Mark Lanigan cameos in this thing, or like the songs that he sings on. He doesn't sing on, or he doesn't sing lead on anything except for Lullaby, which is the opening, this Lullaby. As anybody knows me, as far as this band is concerned, I'm a sucker for any time Mark Lanigan shows up on a Queen's album. Hanging Tree is one of my absolute favorite Queens of the Stone Age songs, and it's a contender for my favorite on Songs for the Deaf. And then you've got In the Fade from Rated R. That is my favorite Queens of the Stone Age song ever, and it's in the running for probably my favorite song of all time. But he's noticeably, I mean, he's in backing vocals on several of these, but he's noticeably absent in terms of a lead role, and I don't mind it. I mean, there's several, this thing, like Logan said, is chock full of bangers. It starts off slow with this Lullaby, which almost sets the tone. This is definitely, I've heard this described, this is like their desert rock album.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was going to say that part of what held my enjoyment back a little bit on this record was how rigid the riffing is.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that that's makes it a bad album.
No.
I don't believe this is a bad album.
No.
But that's just, it doesn't play to my taste super well. But I did notice that rigid riffing kind of was similar to Hami's original band, Caius.
Caius, yeah.
Which I actually really love Caius.
I remember you were really into, what's that song, Green Machine?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I think it's like the first track off of Blues for the Red Sun.
Because I think with us talking about Caius, you were into Green Machine, and my favorite is Demon Cleaner off of Sky Valley.
That's a really good one. Tool covered that once, actually.
They did?
They did. It's on YouTube.
I gotta look that up then, because that's wonderful. Because I love that drum, that just in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good. Anyway.
Yeah, and part of what I found, and I don't mean to like just come right out and shit on your album that you picked, but like part of what I was experiencing while I was listening to this album was hearing those rigid riffs and then wanting the interplay that happens on Caius albums to happen, and they weren't happening, and I'm like, shit.
Well, it is noticeable. This is the first album without Nick Oliveri, I believe.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, there's actually a song about it. Burn the Witch.
Yeah, Burn the Witch.
Burn the Witch. Yeah. Now, Burn the Witch is interesting. So, let me see here. It involves an exchange of vocal lines between the falsetto of Hami and the twin baritones of Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, who does guitar on this thing, and Mark Lanigan. Gibbons does not regularly tour with the band, so the other vocal was performed by Lanigan until he stopped touring with the band.
That is actually really interesting. I didn't...
Featured in the soundtrack of Saw 2, fourth season of the HBO series True Blood, and in Peaky Blinders.
Oh, True Blood. How did I miss that?
I didn't realize that the guy from ZZ Top was in this, but that makes so much sense.
That's actually crazy.
Liam Lynch.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, that was part of what I noticed about this album. Part of what I took notes on.
The guy who directed this video for this thing, that's the guy who made United States of Whatever.
Really?
You ever heard that song? Yeah, I was rolling dice in the alley, and Officer Leroy comes up to me and says, "I thought I told you to." Yeah, whatever. Like it's just like a minute and a half. It's so funny. Jack Black is on this thing.
What?
Marching?
I didn't know that.
He's like foot stomps, I guess, on this thing.
Really?
This is but this is the thing about some of the cameos in this on this album is that you're not gonna pick it out and be like, oh, that's that guy. It's not like
Oh, those are Jack Black's foot stomps.
right. It's not like yeah, right. It's not like Clockwork where you're listening to Collapsia and you're like, oh, that's Trent Reznor singing on that, or Fairweather Friends when you're like, oh, I hear Elton John there on the piano and the vocals and all that. It's not it, you know, it's like I had to look this up.
Yeah,
to know.
I was unaware that there was.
Can I
even
say
That's
something
Billy
about
Gibbons.
Like Clockwork real quick?
Please.
That I think is a super fun fact.
Please, because I love that album.
Josh Homme wrote that on his deathbed. He didn't die, but like
That was when he was really
really sick.
really sick.
And he
Oh,
wrote
wow.
that. He wrote that album in that dying state, and I think it really shows.
You know that, Josh, I actually do really agree with you. I remember the hype for that when it first came out. I started working at the movie theater, and my buddy Andrew was a big Queens of Stone Age fan. And he's like, hey, you like Queens of Stone Age, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, have you seen the music videos that they've been putting out for the new thing? I'm like, no. And you can actually watch it. It's a mini movie. Animated music videos for what was it? Calling All Comas. Hold on, let me think about that. Calling All Comas.
Is that supposed to be?
Keep Your Eyes Peeled. If I Had a Tail. I Appear Missing. Calling All Comas. I keep calling because that's the opening line of the song. I Appear Missing. Keep Your Eyes Peeled. Collapsia and If I Had a Tail, and each one has a different character, and a lot of people were saying it's like Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, but then somebody else brought up that it is like the stages of Homme dealing with what he was dealing with. But you could definitely draw parallels, like Keep Your Eyes Peeled is like war. It's like this dude with like a metal helmet and shit, and he just punches the shit out of people. And Collapsia was like I think pestilence, and then I Appear Missing looked like death. In fact, like it starts with like somebody who's been hit by a car, and then the other one that I'm escaping me. If I Had a Tail was famine, and then it all boils into this My God Is the Sun, which is obviously the big bad single off of that thing.
That song was on Rock Band 4.
Yeah, it was, and I played the shit out of that because I was really good at it because the repetition was always 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 on the triple and double notes. But it builds up to this just catastrophic animated music video that just is eye-bleeding.
Wow,
It's so good.
I need to check that out because that sounds pretty cool.
I think the whole
Yeah.
thing, it's like a 25-minute watch, and it's worth it.
Cool.
It's really cool. But
I'm
anyway,
gonna check that out.
back to this thing. I mean, the cameos on this thing, they're all over the place. If you look at the personnel here, and again, I had to look this up to know this. Shirley Manson does vocals on backing vocals on "You Got a Killer Scene There, Man." She's the lead singer of the band Garbage. They were pretty popular in the mid to late '90s. I do like her vocals a lot, but I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't looked this thing up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I had no idea. Absolutely no idea.
And that's the same thing with the Billy Gibbons thing, Jack Black thing. Like, I knew him and Josh Homme were buddies.
But that makes a lot of sense that he would pull in artists that he thought highly of, because part of my notes that I took on this record was that it kind of felt like he was wearing his influences on his sleeve just a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I enjoy that. I really love I really love when music references other music.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Art
And
imitates
the
art.
other interesting thing I wanted to point out here was this was mixed and mastered by Evil Joe Barisi, however you say his name.
Mm-hmm.
He does so many metal albums. I mean, he did like...
Does he really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did like half a Slipknot. He did the last 2 Tool albums. He's
Yeah.
pretty prolific.
Oh, okay. Wow. He did their original Queens of Stone Age. Fu Manchu, King of the Road. I love early Fu Manchu.
Couple Melvin's records on there. Pussifer, Bad
and you've
Religion.
got Lullabies to Paralyze. Yeah,
Oh,
Clutch.
you got
Cody,
Apocalyptic.
Chevelle.
Ooh, oh yeah, I remember them. Coheed and Cambria. Yeah. Every Time I Die, they had X Lives. I remember when that came out. That was pretty big metal record.
That's
that
the
year.
newest Tool album right there too.
Yep.
Yeah, Fear Inoculum. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he's been all over the damn place.
Yeah, he's a pretty prolific producer.
Yeah, especially in the metal world. That's awesome. Yeah. No. So anyhow, this thing. So like Medication picks up, obviously. Everybody knows you're insane. I will say
I love Medication.
Medication's
That
great,
song
and
is
it's
just all
fast
about
and it's good.
drugs. I love it.
Once you get to Everybody Knows That You're Insane, I will say it's probably my least favorite song on this thing. I just think
Really?
it just gets really repetitive.
You're
for me.
right. I mean, I can't deny that.
But once
That was part of what I was talking about with the rigid riffing. There was
Yeah.
times on this record where I kind of felt like things were overstaying their welcome a little bit.
yeah, and then but by the time you reach track 4, it's all bangers. Tangled Up in Plaid, I absolutely love the songwriting on this thing. And just even though they go back to the same thing a few times, that I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for I know you got to be free, so free yourself, and then at the very end, so kill yourself. I don't care.
Yes.
I don't care
Yes.
how edgy that sounds. I loved it.
The change in the mindset throughout
Yeah.
a song.
Yeah,
I-
so good.
I read that the name of, or maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. We're talking about Everybody Knows That You're Insane, correct?
Tangled Up in Plaid.
That's right. Sorry, I was not ahead of myself.
No, you're good.
Tangled Up in Plaid, I read that was actually inspired by Tangled Up in Blue by Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. I love the song, and that's the one where I could hear Lanigan, his backing vocals a little bit. I had a couple songs. Once I discovered that he sang with the band quite a bit, I was going back through the discography years ago, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's Lanigan singing. Okay, that's that. And then anyway, but no, really, really enjoy that song. I think that's where the album really kicks off as strong for me. Then of course you get to Burn the Witch, which
Burn the Witch is good.
arguably the most well-known song on this thing, and just that, I mean, it's such a simple backbeat. It's that don't and so by the way, I heard this song the Blazers were playing the other day. You know, they play this song
Really?
as like a
hype,
like a possession, like taking a dribble, and it's just
nice.
it's a don't and I'm sitting there, I'm like, yo, that's fucking Burn the Witch. Like,
That's awesome.
But
That's
it makes
funny.
sense because, and I'm like, okay, it's not anthem status the way that like Seven Nation Army is, but it makes sense because it's got that same drumming beat as like Black Keys Howling for You, or like Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll Part 2. It's that.
Right.
It makes sense.
4 on the floor.
In my head.
4 on the
dude,
floor. Yeah.
In my head, were you about to switch?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
In my head, I think it's such a good, like, chill love song.
This is
And it rates up there with, in terms of Queens of the Stone Age love songs, Era Vulgaris,
Misfit Love.
no,
The
later.
whole bottom chunk of this album, really?
I think a lot of the bottom half of this album is sex songs.
It is.
That's
totally.
exactly what he said. Yeah, and it is. It totally is. Well, yeah.
It's,
the
it's,
titles, man, Skin on Skin, The Blood is Love. I mean,
Yeah, I put.
But Make It
quotes
With
on
You.
my,
oh my God, Make It With You. Yeah. I will say though, in my head, this is one of those songs that's a prime example of whenever I describe certain Queens of the Stone Age songs, I just think like effortlessly cool. Like
For
this
sure.
is a song you listen, and you're like, oh, these guys are cool. there's no other way for me to put it. And Era Vulgaris has several that are the same way. River in the Road and Threes and Sevens. I mean, where I'm just like, oh, these guys are.
Threes and Sevens is the coolest song.
I'm
Like
like,
that's the
these
first
guys are
song a
just
lot of people heard from Queens of the Stone Age due to Guitar Hero.
If it wasn't Millionaire, it was that. It depends on if I played Guitar Hero 3 or Tony Hawk's Underground first.
I mean, I played Tony Hawk's Underground and Guitar Hero 3.
Yeah.
And I never really just like took the Queens of the Stone Age in. The first
Yeah.
song that I heard from Queens of the Stone Age that really made me be like, wow, what is this? I was hanging out with my buddies in college and he was playing Era Vulgaris.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised. It was the song was Quick and to the Pointless.
Oh, yeah.
Quick and to the Point was playing, and I said, "What is this? I need to know."
Quick and the Pointless is such a good song. Honestly, like, and spoiler alert, Era Vulgaris, I think you and I are in agreement. That's our favorite, right?
Favorite.
Queens of the Stone Age. Hami calls that his robot album. Like, because everything is so methodic in the beats and everything like that. Especially on something like Battery Acid.
Battery Acid.
Battery Acid. Anyway, I'm getting off the beat of this one.
So real quick, you called back to our last show with Seven Nation Army being a sort of a stadium folk anthem at this point.
Yeah.
They actually played it during like the cut to commercial break during the last UFC event.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I was like,
did they? Were you watching it?
Yeah.
I was watching.
Jace, get up on your mic a little bit more.
Sorry, bud.
Yeah, you're good, man. I just don't want you to sound like you're in a tunnel.
Yeah.
So yeah, in my head, it's just one of those. That's one I find myself almost skipping to because I'm just like, it's a good driving song too. It's got that great tempo. Little Sister, this is one I had on repeat quite a bit, especially.
Little Sister is probably the best song on this album, but not my favorite.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but it's definitely. I mean, the overall beat and the tempo of this thing was great, and it's one of those. This was probably the first song on this album I heard.
This is definitely for me too. And
it came up in a mix on Spotify or something. And I used to have I still do it from time to time, but I used to really get into like listening to music when I was taking showers and stuff. And I'd just be like, okay, this, whatever playlist was on. I fucking Little Sister. It's such a good tempo. It just gets me pumped. I'm just like, fuck yeah, let's do this.
I have a sickness.
Did you look up the lyrics of this song?
No.
I have a sickness, and the only cure is more cowbell.
Yes, dude.
Yeah,
it's got cowbell for fucking days, doesn't it?
It's weird because I feel like he's talking about somebody romantically, but the song is named Little Sister.
That's always bothered me too.
So that's actually I could be putting my foot in my mouth here, but I've heard similar things happen in a lot of blues. So I think that's another instance of them pulling from their roots.
Yeah. And then I Never Came. It's one of those, man.
It's a one that you don't remember from the album. I think it's not
really. I go back. I like the vocal performance on it. It's very.
It struck me as a little bit of a change of pace.
It's very slow but it builds. Like when
and that's
when
my
gets,
favorite thing I think about Queens of the Stone Age is like they start slow, especially on this album. Like in say Songs for the Dead.
Yeah.
They go. And they start and they keep that pace.
Well, by the time he gets toward the end, he starts singing high pitched. That's when I'm in, and it's definitely one that I don't know it based on the song title. I know it based on where I get when I'm listening to the album in the car.
For sure.
It's so I do get what you're saying there. I do like it though. Then you get to probably my favorite song on the album.
Someone's in the Wolf.
Someone's in the Wolf. Yeah.
I love the whiny vocals in this one.
Dude, what I love about this thing is it sounds like boss music, man. It sounds like this is like every if I'm thinking of it right, unless it's the other one. I'm pretty sure it's Someone's in the Wolf. And again, this goes to show I don't know many of the names of these songs because I listen to it in the car and they kind of or on my phone and they blend together.
Yeah.
This is the one that's dun 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 dun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This I feel like Queens of the Stone Age has one song every album that I can only describe as boss fight music.
Oh, I like that.
This is that song. Songs for the Deaf, it's Songs for the Dead, Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god. So
yeah,
good.
I heard. So I read that this was like a sexualized version of the Little Red Riding Hood.
I believe it 100%.
This is an instance where this is a good example of why you need to start paying attention to lyrics, because this is a song you love so much.
Look sharp, Mike.
Look here, buddy. So this is a song that you like so much. There's a whole layer to it that I feel like you've missed because it is. If you read the lyrics right now,
oh God, so glad you could stay. It's
kind of subtle.
I'm reading it now, like so glad you could stay forever. That's the chorus, which I dig.
Keep going because it gets worse.
And, yeah, a crooked man.
It's rapey by the end.
There's a blood on the blade. Don't take his hand. Yeah. No fucking kidding.
But it's like Someone's in the Wolf. It's like the same thing as a Little Red Riding Hood. Like somebody is acting as someone that you might know.
And there's less lyrics in this thing than I thought, but there's a lot of riffing and repeated choruses.
Check out verse 3 down.
Yeah. Blood on the blade. Yeah, warmed by the firelight. Yeah, man, that gets very rapey. No, but it's really cool. I mean, it's just the sound, but I like that because the guitar is that. That sounds so sinister,
and also like that's a build up too. They build up there like and
It starts out low, and
Yeah.
then by the end of it, it's bordering on like Psycho. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like the
and
Psycho
the whole time
shower
the voice
stab.
is the same thing.
Yep. Could stay forever. Yeah. So this one winds up being my favorite on the album, but again, it's just because it's long, it builds, the drums are thunderous, and it gets more and more. I mean, you're like, oh fuck, when's it over? When's it over? Like it stops for a bit. You think it's done? No, it's not. It's not. Wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, so if you could pull up the lyrics on the next one.
The blood is love.
Yeah.
I felt like this song was like from a perspective of a murderer, honestly.
Yeah, so
It makes sense to me. Yeah.
Actually, you could be onto something, especially with the last lines of Someone in the Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
So what I took from this was that it seems to be kind of about a really, really passionate relationship that was either full of problems and difficult to maintain or has broken already.
Yeah.
Something that I want to note is the open up your eyes, deep blue, glassy lake, and swim till water and sky. So that line is, I think it gets referenced later. I could be drawing.
Yeah,
I think you're correct. Yeah.
So that the last part of this seems a little bit more narrative based. Let me see, what other lyrics did I note about here? So hand wrapped as if a ring.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm talking about. Like it seems like it's about a relationship, or a divorce.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, yeah. The seed waits for the reaper to sow. Every breath an art.
Yeah.
The dignity to it can strain and break your heart. That
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense to me, man.
Right.
A relationship that is not going well. I think a lot of these songs are about toxic relationships.
Yeah, and then you have
Yeah.
Skin on Skin. The next one is just like lol sex the song.
Just sex, dirty sex rock,
It
and
so
the
is.
guitar sounds like you're like that guitar is slapping like
Wow.
sex right there.
This is I and I mean this in the best way. This is about as sleazy sounding as they get.
Oh, totally. And this is the moment where I went, oh shit, Queens of the Stone Age made a cock rock album in 2005.
I feel like but again, in the same thing as like they have one boss music song every album, I feel like they have at least one song an album that's very, like fucking I'm Designer is kind of the same way, which that's your song.
That's my song.
What's the other one? Smooth Sailing. It's usually like a suggestive line or two compared to this one, which is just all banging.
This is literally the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, called Skin on Skin. This is 100% about fucking.
Giving head is what I read here. But no, it's so great. It's like, so he does that there, and then whereas now we kind of just get like one line and kind of a suggestive, grindy sounding song.
What's the I'm Designer?
Counter
proposal.
I go home and jerk off. And then Smooth Sailing. I blow my load over the status quo. Here we go. Like,
and then
go.
On this one he says, I hate to see you leave, but I love to watch you go. Like that's so.
Dude, I feel like
a classic line.
That's a line in like a movie or something. I swear to God. But yeah. No,
with that honky tonk but donkey donk for sure.
I was listening to this when on my way to the post office before it just happened to be in rotation because I was brushing up a little bit. But what is that fucking from? That's from a movie, I bet. But it's like, yeah, I don't know. Tell me that's not from Face Off. Castor Troy. I know they didn't coin that for that damn John Woo movie. That is a great song though, honestly. And then we get to Broken Box.
This one's interesting because you think Broken Box, there's got to be some sort of like, that's got to be a metaphor for something, but he literally says broken pussy in the song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's part of why I say that there's like a narrative here, because like if you take that in the context of the previous songs, it's kind of like he's got this tough relationship, and then they get the banging out of the way, and then he's just like, nah, fuck it.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. I'm done with you.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. I like his lyricism on this thing though. Yeah.
Those songs especially just work together well.
I mean, literally one of the lines on Broken Boxes got my flesh full of blood.
I mean, if anybody's gonna write like
everybody's got their flesh full of blood though.
I will say though.
Yeah, but you know what he's talking about.
if there's anybody that's gonna write like a sleazy sounding song though, let it be Josh Homme.
But the thing of it is that a lot of rock has kind of like, it used to be that way heavily
With
and
everybody.
it's lost that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
it's
I mean,
all
Hami's just kind of, once again, we talked about this on the last show. Hami's kind of pulling it back.
because right now, whatever they call rock on the radio these days, it's whatever warmed up stuff that they can get and play in commercials, and there's a ukulele in it and a xylophone and what. It's like fuck, dude. Can we just
Get back to the roots, man.
come on?
So the first line of this song is, I don't mean to make obscene, and I actually don't believe that.
This song has
think he's lying.
has such a nonchalant devil may care vibe.
It really does.
I love it.
It's very cool. Again, this is one of those cool sounding songs.
Oh, I don't think we mentioned we moved on to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
you've got a killer
you've got a
scene there,
killer
man.
scene there, man. I like saying it like that.
Man.
This is the one backing vocals by Shirley Manson and Mark Lanigan, and I'll tell you, on listening to this one a couple times, I couldn't hardly tell she was on it.
No.
Like, you get a a slightest hint of a female vocal in the background, but Mark Lanigan can kind of hit that range as well when he wants to, and he's got kind of that gravelly voice that almost kind of covers her a little bit. But this one it's a good song for toward the end, and those interludes that
they do a
so
lot
good.
of that this album.
A lot, which I don't mind either. This is like a desert night,
100%, yeah.
I love it.
So, the next song, I
Yes.
think I kind of battle with this one being my favorite song,
Okay.
just because I just think it's so. I don't know the
Ties
word for
back
it.
to the first track a little bit.
It does, yeah,
And
you're right.
It does. It picks up where it left off, in my opinion.
And I like that it's after all of that.
Yeah.
He chooses to close it with kind of a mournful breakup song,
Yeah.
and especially the brass. The
Yeah.
brass to close the album was such a nice touch.
A great choice as well. It's one of those things that he'll make a choice on instrumentation like that on an album like once in a blue moon, and you're just like, oh, this works.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, this song kind of reminds me of like the vibe of Arctic Monkeys 505, where like
Yeah.
you start out just super somber, slow, and then by the end of the song, it's just like you're booming with this shit. And
like we talked about before, this is Queen's doing, I mean, what they do really well, which is that slow build into something, and by the end you're listening to something fucking,
I think like this album, they're doing the slow build into fucking hard rock, and then in Songs for the Deaf, one of my favorite things in that album that they do a lot is they're going hard and then they just stop.
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, song's over. And then they just pick it back up.
They do that a few times on that album too. Whether you're stopping a song and then you get the radio station fumbling and bullshit, and then you get into the next one, or in the case of Millionaire, where it's that and it pauses for like 5 seconds, and then
I think
right into
I
it.
think it's Songs for the Dead, where they're yeah, it's Songs for the Dead, Songs for the Deaf, the fourth song on the album.
Yeah.
Where they go,
oh,
they're going hard,
yeah,
and then it stops, and he goes, hey.
I love that. That's the one that's yeah. Down, 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 down. Wow. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember
It throws me because there's a Song for the Deaf and Song for the Dead,
Yeah.
which always threw me. Because one of them is that one, and then the other one is that boss fight song. Oh man, so good. Which I believe that that part is actually playing in the radio at the start of right before Millionaire, when the guy starts up his truck or whatever. Hey, it's Kip Casper.
Kip Casper
How's
here.
your drive time commute? I need a saga.
What's the
What's
saga?
the saga?
It's Songs for the Deaf.
You can't even hear it.
I had that CD in my car consistently for like 3 years.
Hey, me
so-
too.
Yeah, same, dude. I every Queen's album I've got has made a rotation in and out of the car. This one has been in there the last week, and I just put Era Vulgaris back in there. I would say they are on the most constant rotation in and out of my radio of any of the bands I own.
And that's why they're my second favorite band. I will always go back to Queens of the Stone Age. If I have a lull, it's Queens of the Stone Age.
And I will say, like even though like Pixies are my all-time favorite band, Queens of the Stone Age is way better driving music. It's just, I mean,
You just get down to some Queens.
Pixies is
I
like,
don't know. There's some parts of Trompe Le Mans that are great in the car.
I do like Trompe Le Mans. But Pixies is more like I'll throw that on at work, or if I'm just chilling, just like if I'm drawing or writing or something, boom. But in the car, I'm like, give me Queens, give me fucking, let me turn that shit up, like, yeah. And then of course you got the bonus, the bonus track at the
I
end.
don't even
here.
think, because I listened to the song on Spotify and that's not on there.
I don't know that I got it either. I think it pops up as like you think the song's over and then it's not, but it'd be hard to tell it's a bonus track.
But like I just listened to it today, and like I went to the end just to try to see if I could find the song. But
oh really?
On the Spotify version, it's just down,
that's it.
and that's just some instrumental stuff.
That's probably all it is then.
But like this says
I didn't
lyrics.
notice anything special.
I didn't hear any lyrics anyway.
Huh.
No. Well,
anyway, yeah. So Voidz, Power Trip,
yeah.
Queens of the Stone Age.
Power Trip, the Voidz, Queens. So what was everybody's, first of all, what was all of our favorite songs on Tyranny?
Human Sadness.
Human
100%.
Sadness, obviously, yeah. I would say the same, but to pick a second one, I'd go Business Dog.
I liked Business Dog.
Yeah, Business Dog was great. And then on this one, what is the consensus favorites? Obviously, mine is Someone's in the Wolf.
I
Long
liked Burn
Slow
the Witch.
Goodbye.
What
Burn
was
the
it?
Witch.
Burn the
you?
Witch.
I liked Burn the Witch.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. I mean, any
It's
of those
the most
songs are
infectious
great.
song.
That was my favorite song at the time, but with this album, over the years, my favorite song has just changed because I started getting into it, and I'm just like, wow.
I can totally see the
this is a good
potential for
song.
that to happen. There's a lot of really, really good music on that.
That's how I get with Era, where I'll think like I'll go a year of being like, Make It With You is my favorite on the album, and then I listen to it again, and I'm like, Misfit Love is really good.
I think that's the thing with a lot of Queen's albums, though.
It's and then I'll go and again I'll listen to it again. River in the River in the Road is my favorite on that thing, but I know the next time I deep dive it, it's probably not gonna be. it's tough to choose. Okay, so I think that about wraps her up. We'll be taking the next week to pick out another album to deep dive. Thank you for coming and doing the show, Logan.
Thanks for being a
second
guest.
episode in, and we said, "Fuck it," we're gonna amp up the workload by another 50%, and it worked out. It worked out very well.
I'm gonna listen to some more Voidz. So thank you.
Yeah, and we will catch you all in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks
should work for me, I think.
Yeah, 9/5. I think that's what that's gonna be, September 5th. So. In the meantime, everybody hang tight out there, and we'll see you again real soon.